just, brush aside the consequences and move on. But that's a whole field of law that lies out there in just helping startups or e-commerce sites or anybody online create the entire setup out there. So law is behind every step of technology or every move that it has made. The only part, again, where we have not been keeping pace at all, and that's the final chapter in my book, and you all can heave a sigh of relief because I said final, is on enforcement. I think we are kind of coming back to the same topic that was discussed in the earlier session. How much is the enforcement mechanism where the judiciary is the last bastion going to really help us? How well is it going to help us? And to what extent can we rely on this system to move things? I've already said law is supposed to play a supportive role for this development. So isn't the last bastion then also supposed to help it further? What we really need today in that are, of course, good practitioners who can assist court, and also courts which are clearly aware of this technology and how it drives the process, and not misapply the law merely for want of awareness about the technology. So with that, any questions? How many? Yeah, please. Sure, yeah, absolutely. Questions, comments, or discussions? Any of them, please. The gentleman in red, and then somebody out here, I missed the hand.
Hi, thank you for coming here. I had one question to make with respect to your point on cryptography. You had mentioned that the court should not have laws on stuff that it cannot regulate. And on a similar line, I wanted to ask, with the rise of use of machine learning in various fields, what is your comment on liability of the developers, the owners, what rights could someone whose rights have been infringed have, especially taking into consideration various cases in the US which have restricted the rights of civil agencies from actually being able to analyze the source code. In that aspect, can we perhaps look at rights in this sense by taking into consideration stuff like piercing of the corporate veil, wherein you have to look at liability of software developer even though the owner is using that software to further his or her own ends?
Excellent question. Thank you for that. In fact, I've addressed this by, relying on one of the most disruptive technologies that have come up now, automation. If you Google this thing about the Japanese premier and the Nissan automatic car, you will see him, getting into the car, and then he's test driving the car. And the first question he asks is, who takes the driver's test? The car? And this is where we stand when we talk about disruptive technologies and liability. When we go into these aspects, and I think that you have in a way substantially answered the question yourself, I would take it way beyond just lifting the corporate veil. It's lifting the layers to decide where the liability would lie, and also analyzing the feasibility of doing that. And I'll use this example to explain this, of automated cars. Now, automated cars are driven by software, right? There is a person who owns it. When we compare automated cars with traditional car driving, the onus or liability at the end of the day for a road accident lies with the owner and the driver of the car. Today you have a car which does not have a driver, but you definitely have an owner. You then have a car manufacturer but the car manufacturer is probably outsourcing literally every single piece of that car, including probably even the nuts and bolts that go into it. Then you have layers of suppliers of physical parts and the software or the virtual parts that go into it. Now, who decides where liability would lie? It would invariably lie with the person who has committed a default. The liability was placed very easily with the driver of a vehicle and now by default on the owner, because it said that you are the person in charge of the vehicle, you caused the accident, therefore you're liable. Now in an automated car, it is supposed to be able to identify objects which cross its path, and using machine learning says, okay, so this is something that I'm not supposed to hit, therefore I should stop. So this is how it's supposed to function. Now if it doesn't do that, and there are already several instances of accidents taking place on automated locomotives. I'm not going to say cars, because there have been trains which have derailed, which have hit things. There are cars which have faced accidents. So there are different kinds of vehicles which have had accidents. People still believe that automated cars are better off than with human intervention, because they make less mistakes than humans. According to me, that's a moot issue. Now, if you have all these layers, and each of those layers are going to be driven by contracts, each of those contracts are going to contain liability clauses. Right? But each of those contracts are between the service provider or the provider of those goods with the manufacturer. The ultimate face of the car or the vehicle, as far as the user is concerned, is the manufacturer. So then as a user, we would definitely assume that the liability lies with the manufacturer. It is for them to decide who will subrogate into their shoes thereafter. It may be an issue of passing on the liability, but the principal versus agent concept, which is of the disclosed principle, will be that which will decide the liability aspect here. So when I said there are layers and there has to be a specific application, I am using both general or first principles in deciding liability as also evolving aspects. So in effect, when a person is a victim of an accident, they look to the owner of the vehicle for redress. The owner of the vehicle may or may not have a contract which will allow him to seek redress from the car manufacturer. If contractual rights are not there, he can still seek it in tort, and then the car manufacturer in turn may seek elsewhere. But the victim cannot be told that because the car manufacturer has these no liability clauses with the developers, he has to seek the compensation from the software manufacturer. So this is for a vehicle. If we were to put the same machine learning process in something else, let's take an open source protocol for instance. Now open source protocols predominantly go on a very basic license. You have now today many licenses that drive them, but one clause which is of concern there is that most of the open source licenses say that you are accepting the license on an as-is basis, and that the person who has evolved the open source software and persons who may work on it further cannot be held liable for any loss or damage that arises from that. So if some product were to be developed using open source,